This morning now we're going to move to a highlight always of all of the conferences that we've done, which is our carer panel. So the carer panel today is going to be looking at the diversity of carers. So it's a pretty broad topic. Our carer panel facilitator today is one of Australia's most respected Indigenous communications, research and facilitation consultants with more than 30 years experience in the health, training and community sectors. He combines theoretical and practical understanding of systems, cultural imperatives, policy analysis, capacity building and community empowerment. He is committed to providing the highest level of consultancy services, raising the positive profile of Indigenous people and communities, and supporting corporate and government agencies in developing inclusive business practices. Justin Noel is amazing. He has done many and facilitated lots of conversations and things with carers as part of the development of the New South Wales Carers Strategy, but also other conversations and things with carers to inform different policies and changes and responses, which has been fantastic. So please welcome Justin Noel.
Thanks, Elaine.
Thanks, Justin. So I'm going to hand over to Justin, who's going to introduce you to our diverse carer panel. We've got a couple of carers that are running just a little bit late. So we've got a number of carers to start with, and then we'll bring a couple of extras in as they come on board. But I'll hand over to you. So thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Elena. It's always terrible when somebody reads a bio that somebody else wrote. I hope you all have a good morning. As Elena said, I get the privilege of doing a lot of work with carers and in the caring space, including the Aboriginal Carers Working Party for New South Wales, Carers Voices with the Advisory Council and the New South Wales Health Carers Framework. My job today is really just to prompt a few questions and basically be quiet and allow our carers panel to tell you their experiences and their wisdom. So I would just like to acknowledge traditional owners, elders past and present, and all the lands and nations that we're all dialing in from virtually today, and pay my respects. I'm going to just run down my list. We're really lucky we've got quite a number of carers from across different backgrounds in different areas. So I'm going to go from Melissa to Ruth and then to Tracy in that order so far. Go for it. I'll start with Melissa. If you could just let us know who you are, a little bit about yourself, and that'd be great.
Thanks, Justin, and thanks for the opportunity to participate and engage with this terrific conference today. My name's Melissa, and I live with my husband who had a motorbike accident in 2012 with major injuries to his upper torso, broken bones, neck, lungs, heart, and an acquired brain injury. Fortunately, he has made a tremendous recovery and is living relatively independently now. Although the main impact is in relation to his acquired brain injury, which is also fortunately an invisible injury for him and others at this stage. However, that causes challenges for all of us because of its invisibility. I've found it a bit difficult to acknowledge myself as a carer, partly because I've always seen the role of carer as somebody who looks after people who are severely disabled, and my husband is able to drive a car and is fairly independent, but also because it is an invisible injury and even I forget he has it. It's been a journey, and I manage most of his administration, but his practical day-to-day he's able to manage pretty much himself, although I've become a hyper vigilant, risk averse, overseeing manager to try and prevent all the little incidents that occur as a result of his injury, in order not to have another major one. So thank you for inviting me today. I look forward to this discussion and further questions.
Thanks very much, Ruth. Sorry, Melissa, I'm already getting ahead of myself. Thank you. Ruth, you're up next.
Yeah, thanks. My name's Ruth. I'm from Newcastle, and I cared for my paramedic husband who was as a paramedic, developed PTSD, depression, and alcohol abuse. And I cared for him for about 10 years until he sadly took his own life 2 years ago. And so during that caring time, yes, I had to kind of think for both of us, and that was very intense. And as many of you carers will know, that's kind of most of the job is that emotional work. And I quit my job. I had been a TAFE teacher and quit that to look after Dave full time. And subsequent to Dave's death, I've been developing myself as a pastoral care practitioner and looking after other people in a different way. I also just really found through that journey an incredible amount of post-traumatic growth. So there's hope for us all.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ruth. And look, thank you for being here. And I think it makes it really clear that that role of a carer doesn't stop at some arbitrary date. You know, your love of the person, the family, the impact and the role that we have as a carer kind of knows no end. So thank you so much, and hope you're going well today. That's awesome to hear. Thank you. Tracy, I think you were next.
Yes, thanks, Justin, for having me. Yeah, and thanks to Carers New South Wales for this opportunity. Yeah, I care for 3 people in my household. So 2 of them are my 2 teen boys. Both of them were diagnosed with chronic medical conditions and disability in their early childhood. And so over those years, it has definitely proved challenging, I guess, navigating lots of different systems and advocating for them, you know, along the way for the rights to education, to relationships and all those sorts of things. Most recently, I've also started caring for my husband who has a degenerative back condition, and both of us, you know, being in our early 40s, you know, we were hoping that, you know, we would not have these issues at this point, but, you know, we've tackled them head on, and I think this caring role has really enriched, I guess, my personal and my work goals over the years as well. So yeah, it's a really wonderful to see so many diverse carers here today, and we have so many wonderful things to share, and hopefully some inspiration for those other carers out there going through similar things.
Thank you, Tracy. I was going to do the next group of 3, but we've got Leanne and Malcolm are still dialing in, as Elena said, for those of you watching. So I'm going to go straight to Lua.
Hi, my name's Lua and I'm 19 years old. I'm in my 2nd year of university studying a Bachelor of Fine Arts. I care for my younger brother, Orlando, who was born premature at 23 weeks. So because of being born premature, he has mild cerebral palsy, chronic lung disease, vocal cord palsy, OCD, hearing loss, severe learning disorders, and he's on the autism spectrum. Being a carer has been a large part of my life for as long as I can remember, and has basically just been something I feel like I have done since I was 7 when my brother was born.
Thank you. Yes, lifelong. That's really important. And I think one of my godsons, he was born on the cusp of 24 weeks. So I think, you know, that role of family, and particularly having a big sis there to look out for him, but to understand him perfectly, that's an absolute gift. He's lucky to have you. Look, so as you can see, and as Elena said, we've got a really diverse carers panel, and I'll introduce Leanne and Malcolm when they get into the online room when they come in. But that diversity, that role of family, that role of caring for one person, growing to 3 people, growing to what was your beautiful term, Ruth? Post-traumatic growth, in terms of sharing with others. So I guess my first question, and feel free for any of you to jump in first on this one, is when did you first realize you were a carer? When did that label apply to you?
I'll jump in. I just realised when I was when Dave was struggling with sleep and so on, for him to get some help, but it was a long journey, and it was hard for him to actually find a diagnosis for himself that kind of didn't shatter his identity as a competent paramedic. He was, a senior intensive care paramedic, and to take that route and actually find someone who identified that, which is basically what I did. Actually, was saying, things aren't right, and that was a massive kind of shift in what was happening between he and I, and his identity as a competent worker, and so that was a hard task to actually go that road. But I think for me to actually ask for help was the really tough part for me. So I think I left it way too long to actually recognise that I needed support. And, it wasn't until the last couple of years of Dave's life that I actually asked for support and got it. So,
I think if I can jump in, for me, it's 9 years ago since my husband's accident, at which time I had to instantly jump in and manage every aspect of our lives. His construction company, the insurance compensation process, the sale of our belongings to enable finances, as well as, of course, his medical journey. And I have 3 degrees, but they're all in the humanities, so that was a bit of a shock, not things I was really interested in. But the irony is that I don't think it was until about a year ago that I acknowledged that I was possibly in a caring role. And I was offered support through Lifetime Care and We Care, to have some counselling and group sessions and support around the daily stress and all that's taken place. So yeah, it was late coming.
Thank you for that. And I think that notion of having to suddenly learn new skills as a carer that are the complete antithesis of what you normally like doing. Yeah. Well, thank you. Lua or Tracy, did you have any?
Yeah, I might jump in, Justin. I think it took a while for me for it to sink in that I was a carer too, because I think particularly with the young kids as a mum and really busy at that time, you just think, oh, yep, just the normal parenting go. But over time, and I think once my eldest was diagnosed with autism, and we were sort of invited into that community of other parents and carers going through a similar journey, then I realised, hey, I do actually need some help here. It's not something I was very familiar with, even though I actually am early childhood trained and teacher and had some experience with some special needs. But when you're living it, it definitely brings a totally new level of care. And I think, as you say, that mental drain, living it day in, day out. And then, as you say, I think one of the other carers were mentioning, being that admin assistant and multitasking, all these different systems and things. And we actually set up a Facebook page in our local area with families and parents, and that really started that support for me, and then I've been lucky enough to get into some work, paid work that also nourishes me as a carer, so I'm very blessed. But yeah, it's not so easy for everyone, but I think being able to talk about it and reach out really helps address those things.
Brilliant. Oh, thank you, Tracy. Thank you.
I think for me, there was not really a real moment of realization that I was a young carer, and it was kind of something that happened progressively. And I think it started more with me babysitting my younger siblings on weekends when my parents would take my younger brother Orlando to his appointments. And then over the years, I completed, more roles and responsibilities, that that included, but like weren't limited to, bathing, feeding, driving, administering medication, taking Orlando to hospital, doctors, speech and occupational therapy appointments, helping my mum fill out forms, calculating NDIS payments, all those kinds of roles that I kind of just slowly and progressively undertook. And it was something that often for me growing up felt very individual and isolating, as I didn't even realize what I was doing had a title. And it often seemed like something that was completely just unique to my family and kind of my home situation. And it was only after I started to engage with young carers that I realized, oh, wow, there's other young people that are in the same position that I'm in and are taking on similar responsibilities to me. And I'm not alone in this.
Right. Yeah, thank you. Look, and I think that realization, most carers are really slow to realize. Doesn't matter what age you are. I think for me, I was mid-40s and I was working on a carers project before I suddenly went, oh, that's me. You've got all these compartments in your life, as you've all described. You're busy, you're looking after family, you're doing your job, loving kids, bring them up, and then suddenly there's this extra bit that, the label doesn't quite cover everything you've already described, but it's what we work with at the moment, and it really does capture it. We're really lucky. Leanne's gotten into the online conference room, so I'm going to go to Leanne in a moment, and we're just going to get you to introduce yourself, if that's okay, and just let people know who you are. And as you heard, we're just getting panel members to just describe when they first realised they were a carer on that.
Okay, so you can hear me okay?
All good, yep.
Lovely, all right. I've missed everybody else's introduction, so I feel like I'm coming in a bit cold here, so I'll build up my courage a little bit.
Beautiful.
So I care for my husband who has secondary progressive MS. He was diagnosed 14 years ago and it affects his spine and frontal lobe. So the outplaying of that is that he has poor balance and needs a walking stick and a rollator and fatigues quickly. The effects on the frontal lobe is far more devastating. The frontal lobe, for those of you who don't know, I've learned a lot about it. The frontal lobe is what provides us with our problem solving, memory, initiation, motivation, judgment, personality. It's pretty much what makes us who we are. And so unlike a brain trauma where the brain cells can grow back, or so I've been told, with MS, it continues to deteriorate, not unlike or much like dementia, I guess. And so, before MS, my husband was a very vibrant, highly motivated, lots of fun, sociable, very good at his work. But, within months, he became reclusive, moody, lost his job, lost interest in a lot of things. So fast forward, my husband doesn't need any help with his personal care. So my role, I think this is the question I'm answering. Sorry if I've gone on a tangent, but this is the question I'm answering. What is my role? So he thrives on routine, but he's kind of lost his starter motor. So he needs prompting for most things. So pretty much my role is just to give him structure to his day, So, you know, encourage him with his exercise, do some sort of brain stimulating activity like a crossword, you know, organise some social carers, all the different appointments, give him make sure he's eating nutritiously, remind him of his chores. And it might seem like a little thing, but it's a big thing. Get him outside. You know, left to his own devices, he will sit inside and watch television and, you know, doesn't realise how much that affects his mood. So just getting him outside, you know, in the sunlight, looking at something different. Yeah, so that's sort of basically my role.
In a very short snapshot, thank you. Look, I think, and thank you for coming in blind on that one, because you hadn't heard the other carers, but you bang on target in the way you described it. And just to let people know, Malcolm is getting tech support as well, so he'll be in with us for the second half for the rest of the panel. Look, clearly, you know, there's that notion of caring kind of either dawning on you, emerging, being thrust upon you by circumstance. But for you as a carer, clearly there's a number of you mentioned that you came late to the party knowing that you needed support as a carer, whatever that was. And I just wanted to jump into that. There's a couple of things I'm seeing in the online chat, which I'm going to try and moderate a little bit around that notion of, you know, becoming a carer. If I put you on the spot, what's the one thing that keeps you going as a carer? And I'm only letting you have one thing for the moment. Not as a worker, not as a partner, not as a mum, but as a carer, what's one thing that keeps you going?
I think I would say the opportunity to debrief with friends or other people in the similar situation.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with that, having other carers or other people in similar situation that get it, understand your lingo and language, and it's okay to be upset or, you know, tired and worn out, wearing the Ugg boots, you know, all that sort of stuff. That's my go-to. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Can I say two things?
Yeah, go for it.
NDIS and Carers New South Wales.
Yep.
You've been a game changer for me, a real game changer. Just help my life to be manageable, has improved the quality of life for me and my husband. Yeah,
thank you.
Two of them just cover so many aspects.
And was that getting somebody to explain the NDIS process to you, or having somebody who was there alongside you as you went through those processes?
Oh, we've been in it for maybe 3 or 4 years. I just think it's a difficult thing to navigate, but once you understand and you use it to your benefit, it's fantastic. It was just trial and error really for me, and asking questions, and
Great, thank you.
And for me, close friendships.
Cool.
I think for me, it's seeing the milestones that my brother hits, and it's always exciting to see him achieve things, and that always keeps me motivated as a carer and as his sibling. And it's amazing just to see what he can accomplish, considering everything that he has already accomplished and continues to accomplish, surpassing doctors' expectations in every way.
That's always the good thing. And I think, you know, clearly, I think that notion of hope that what you're doing actually has some benefit, is having some tangible thing for the person you love and you care for. That's awesome. Your second question, sorry to be pushy on this one. Given that we are about to come out of various stages of lockdown and the rest of it, what's been the biggest challenge for you as a carer during the pandemic? A number of you have mentioned the role of friends and supportive people, which you may not have been able to do in the normal way of catch up for a coffee, or, you know, the power of a hug has kind of disappeared from our social repertoire, and we're going to have to relearn how to do that as of Monday, depending where you are in the state. What's been the biggest challenge that you've had to either tweak, learn, or find a new way, like this lovely online Zoom thing that I never knew I was going to be able to do February last year? So.
Jump in there, Justin. It's interesting you say that in regards to re-emerging, and I'm definitely a little nervous about doing so. But thankfully, you know, we were lucky enough, I guess, earlier to have a small amount of COVID in our environment to get a bit of a taste of how this digital world would work. And it has been both a challenge, but also a big, huge benefit, having that to stay connected with my peers. And, you know, I'm really grateful that programs that I do work with have allowed those things to happen. I guess the big challenge for me is accepting that some people just won't use it. But I guess what I try to do is still reach out to those individuals, even if they don't want to be on, you know, on show or showing off their living room or kitchen or their crazy house at that time, you know, with kids running around at homeschooling and all that sort of stuff in the background. You know, they sometimes want that privacy, and I've learned to respect that. But I think also just letting them know you're there has been really beneficial in a private setting. So,
Okay, thank you.
One of the biggest challenges for me is spending 15 weeks in the same house with someone with an acquired brain injury. I don't have children, so I imagine, you know, I just sometimes need a different conversation. Thank God for Zoom and the telephone. At first, I thought we needed to do everything together, and then realised that was impossible and not productive. So we sometimes go for walks side by side on our separate phones, talking to other people, which has been great. We have had support with cleaning prior to COVID, because I can't really employ a secretary to live with us. So that's been a lovely lateral assistance. But that's not been possible. So we've had rosters and routines, and that's been interesting. I think the biggest thing for us has been the anxiety about COVID, the disease itself, because he was a few weeks on a ventilator in a coma at the start of this journey, and we don't want to go there again. And we've been very anxious about the serious nature of that, which I'm not sure that everybody understands unless they've been in ICU. So yeah, it's nerve-wracking coming out. Thank God for the vaccinations, but it's still scary.
Thank you. I like that notion of separately together on your phones on a walk. That's beautiful.
And not all meals together, I realise.
Oh, okay. No, look, that's probably the biggest tip you've given us today so far. That's good. Thank you. Anybody else?
I think for me, at my age, being 19, I've kind of just started to move away from a lot of my care responsibilities that I had when I was living at home. And then I was living on campus for a while, but then given the situation, I've had to move back home, which I think has kind of been a bit difficult to readjust from having a lot of freedom and not as many caring responsibilities to then all of a sudden being kind of thrown back in, and then your caring responsibilities are exemplified with my younger brother, you know, learning from home and all those challenges that come with that. So I think for me, the best thing has been able to go see my partner, who doesn't obviously live with me at home, and getting that escape that way.
Right. Yeah. Must have been a rude shock coming back from life on campus.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, and mine will be to visit family in Sydney. Yeah.
Cool.
Will be,
That's what you're looking forward to?
Yes. Yeah, I've got an elderly mother there.
As of Monday, apparently. Looks
As
like.
of Monday.
As of Monday.
Yep.
Yes. So I think, you know, we've had a number of comments in the online Q&A just around that self-care kind of component, and you've answered that in some ways, and some really practical ones, including having a meal on your own, having some space for yourself, but clearly navigating and re-navigating old roles as a carer because of circumstance, or being thrust back into a family environment, or not being able to get cleaners in and having to juggle things. If I get you to look forward to next year, it's not that long away. It feels